good, everybody? Joey J. Ping checking back in, man. RespectMyRegion.com. We are here today on the 4th official episode of the California Cannabis Podcast. Our journey today powered by Sparks Can. Be sure to visit sparkscan.com. That's SPARKSCANN.com to learn how to maximize your revenue and marketing efforts on Weed Maps, Leafly, and Yelp. Those reviews matter, folks. Now, today is not an episode dedicated to Sparks and their marketing agency. Today's an episode dedicated to David and his team at GoldenHour Collective. You guys are a small legacy craft dispensary in Weed, California.
Hey,
come on, baby. We're putting on for Weed, California. Now, David, we were just talking a little bit offline. First off, welcome. I appreciate you being a guest on the show, but we were just talking offline. You're up there in NorCal. You live there. You're from there. You're in SAC right now. Dispensaries in Weed. Man, California is crazy right now here in Southern California.
Yeah,
what's going on up there in NorCal? What's the haps right now? What's going down?
Yeah, thankfully, kind of status quo up there right now. You know, we've had a really blessed year as far as avoiding fires. Hopefully it stays that way. I think we're out of the woods for the season, hopefully, but you know, we're no stranger to the wildfire. So, you know, got a lot of empathy and a lot of love being sent down south right now, because that's familiar territory for us. I got a lot of friends affected right now. So, you know, sending a lot of love that way, and hopefully they wrap those up soon. You know,
we are definitely less than 10 miles here right now where I'm at in my house from these fires, with the Watch Duty app and the Citizen app on full notification capabilities.
Yeah.
I want to send out my deepest condolences to those families, the friends of ours, again, associates in the industry, and all the people here in Southern California that are severely impacted, affected, and have lost everything from these fires. There's a lot going on. But as we circle back to some positive things, you have built a dispensary there in Weed, California. Weed is a historic area of California, both for its name, the culture, and just the small town energy that it brings to this crazy hustle and bustle that America is today. It's literally a going back in time. It's one of those towns in America.
Yeah.
It's in the mountains to some extent. It's winter, we're talking snow, ice, blistery weather, wind, but then also on the flip side, you get the 4 seasons of, you're going to get the warmth, you're going to get the sun, you're going to get the dry, you're going to get weather and rain.
100%.
And it becomes green and beautiful and so fresh there. Oh,
gorgeous.
It's a different type of high when you get high in Weed, California.
It is a different kind of high when you get high in Weed, for sure. It's beautiful, right at the base of Mount Shasta. Great community. Both inside the industry and outside the industry. You know, like you said, a lot of small town energy. Everybody knows each other. Everybody respects each other. We also get the benefit of, you know, a lot of Highway 5 goes right through the town, and it's your last stop before you hit Oregon to get some California weed. So we're there for everybody that wants to stop by and get their weed in Weed.
Their weed in Weed,
which is a beautiful advantage for us from a business standpoint. You know what I mean? So. And then it's just cool having a store in Weed. You know, I've been in this industry a long time. I opened my first dispensary in 2009, and, you know, I kind of tapped out for a while after my last run, but you know how it is. The plant calls you back and said, if I'm going to do it again, what better place to plant a flag than up in Weed? You know, I've always loved that town. I've always loved that whole area. And, you know, with our concept of GoldenHour, we're really leaning heavy into the craft side of it, the small mom and pop side of it, the legacy side of it. So it puts us right in the heart of that. You know,
people talk about the supply and demand issues when it comes to these craft and smaller operators.
Yeah.
And it's because they're up in these remote places. They're up 100%. In towns that are not filled with tens of millions of people or hundreds of thousands of people or even 50,000 people, some of these places. Yeah. And so Weed, again, smaller town. Talk to me a little bit about your ties to that area and that region. Tell me a little bit about your story in your experiences with Northern California.
Yeah.
What have you been doing there, brother?
I mean, I've always been a Northern California guy. I was born and raised in the East Bay. Then slowly migrated north. You know what I mean? As you know, I get tired. I always love the Bay. I always consider myself a Bay Area guy, but you know, the hustle and bustle is a real thing. Raising a family is a real thing. So, you know, I slowly moved north, found myself in Sacramento, spent a good 2 decades in Sacramento, got my older 2 kids off to college, and then, you know, the mountains were calling me. and slowly made my way up there. So, but it's kind of a part of small piece of a longer story. Like I said, I've been doing dispensaries a really long time. Mostly started in Sacramento. 2008, 2009, opened our first store called Magnolia Wellness. Ended up being a really, really cool project. Ended up moving that into Oakland, had Magnolia Wellness Oakland for a long time. Then, slowly but surely cobbled together different pieces, and then formed my former company, still around, still doing great. Shout out to Perfect Union. As the founder of Perfect Union, was the CEO there for many years. Left in 2022. And kind of like I said, needed a break after like 15 years. And
that became a pretty big brand. You guys built a pretty sizable footprint with that.
Yeah, it was a big brand, man. And they still are. And they're still doing a great job. I'm really proud of the guys over there. Shout out to Tom and Mikey who are running that place now. Sean, those guys are rad.
Dave, I didn't know that about you.
What?
That you were a part of all that. I had no clue.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about that offline at all. I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I try to look.
I was just down to support you because you're the little guy up in weed, and you deserve to be fucking get a voice for the culture. Damn it!
No, I'm the little guy in weed by design, man. You know what I mean?
Let's go.
How do I put this? When you build something special, like we did with Perfect Union, and it was special. It was a special ride going from the early days where it was pure activism, run a voter initiatives, going into it, to then all of a sudden have the opportunity to get courted by investors and to scale up a company and raise a lot of money and be in rooms with people where you can learn a lot of new things. It's a really cool experience, but I wasn't super cognizant of some of the baggage and responsibility that came along with it, and how that has changed the culture of the company, because that place was like my world for many years. Started off as Magnolia Wellness, pivoted into RCP Sacramento, which was like the flagship store in Sacramento. We had a great run at RCP over off West El Camino in Sacramento, biggest store in Sacramento for many years. And that we were doing really well. And then 2018 was on the horizon, and I was keenly aware that things were going to change from the 215 days, and I didn't want to get swept away in that. So, we pulled together a team, raised some money, quite a bit of money, and started opening stores. We were in several different states, but I
didn't know that.
Yeah. We had 5 stores in New Mexico. We had some cultivation manufacturing over in the East Coast in New England and Rhode Island specifically.
Perfect Union, the little big MSO.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, what are we going to do when you grow up, right? And that's part of the problem was, the landscape was changing month by month, what I mean? And a lot of...
And COVID wasn't real scalable reality, so it's extremely hard to project business and determine
really challenging.
And then when it was shut off, both COVID, the stimulus checks, the fun was over. The ride was over.
Right. And that's really what it hit is, we had this good run, and then, we got to a place where the market's tightened up, and we were a growth story, right? We were opening stores. That cost a lot of money. But that was the mission. That's what the investors, bought into. But then when the capital dries up, what do you do? Then you got to buckle down and start rocking and rolling. And that was the phase where, I had been doing this run for many years. I was burned out. The company definitely needed new leadership at that point. I took a step back, brought in a new CEO. That wasn't a very successful transition for a lot of reasons. But ultimately, we were able to bring a bunch of my founders back in. That's who's running the company. Perfect Union, still founder-led. They're doing a great job. Like I said, shout out to those guys. Mikey, who runs the day-to-day over there, started as my security, my front desk guy.
You're the guy that got a bunch of gyms, and then you just were like, I don't want to do all that anymore. I want to keep my peace and do it small and intentional, and have a mission and the impact that you really want, right?
That's
David?
Exactly what it was, because I stepped away, and took a look at everything, and the game just wasn't the same as it was. Not that it was worse, but it wasn't what I loved about the cannabis space anymore. Business, right? Like, all right, well, it's a hard business. Do I really want to start from scratch again? No. So I went and got into, I went into some emerging markets in Mississippi, some other things, some East Coast stuff. But the problem was I got a lot of people that I love up here, you know what I mean? And Emerald Triangle specifically, Humboldt County specifically. And,
it's different.
If you drive through there versus driving through it 10 years ago, man, it's kind of depressing, man. You know what I mean? And I say that with all due respect to the great farmers up there, but people are struggling, right? And I started having a lot of conversations with people that I have a lot of respect for, and really taking a look at what was going on. And I had been kind of bugging Perfect Union to buy their weed store back from them for a while, because they had shuttered it after I left. The CEO that took over after me just didn't see the vision. She shut it down. And then when my guys took back over, they opened it back up, but they just couldn't quite wrap their head around it. So I've been bugging them like, hey, because I love that store. That was like a pet project of mine. It was doing really well. It's super cute little spot. And who doesn't want to sell weed and weed? You know what I mean? It's just fun. So kind of unexpectedly, they pinged me and said, hey, you still interested in taking that store? And I said, yeah, man, screw it. Then I had to decide like what I wanted to do, you know, because I didn't want to recreate the wheel. I did a lot that I'm super proud of with Perfect Union. I learned a lot in that process, but I don't think copying what I did before was going to be very fulfilling, nor was did I think,
as you said, right, the game is not the same.
Right. Nor did I think that it was, from a business standpoint, advantageous to copy what's been being done, right?
Yeah.
So I decided the only way that I wanted to do this again was to support the people that really gave me the opportunity to get in this business, and that's the farmers up in the Triangle. You know what I mean? The legacy folks up north that really built this industry and are still, in my opinion, the bedrock of this industry. So I said, all right, we're gonna do a retail concept exclusively focused on small mom and pop legacy farmers, the people that can't get into the supply chain in a company like Perfect Union, right?
Yeah, they need 5 to 10 stores to live, and you're gonna be one of them.
Yep, exactly right. So that's what we did, and that's why we came up with GoldenHour, because GoldenHour Collective, I wanted to lean into the collective piece because I still think there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, people that were branded to that mindset and that culture, they're going to gravitate towards that versus somebody who's just looking for a dispensary. Let them go to a dispensary.
Exactly right. And we operated like a collective. You know, we have some farms that just put product on the shelf. We don't charge for shelf space. We just say, hey, man, we'd love to bring your brand in. You know what I mean? If you want to put some bags on the shelf, let's see how it goes. You guys run your marketing. You guys run your promos. You got your shelf space right here. We're not going to sell it to you, but let's see how your brand does. And if it doesn't do well, you'll learn, and we'll figure out how to help it do well in the next rollout, right? So we really do treat GoldenHour like a collective where people bring in their products. We really were collaborating with the farmers. I'm in the Triangle. I'm on farms on a weekly basis, meeting with people, looking at product, bringing it in. And that's really the whole concept. That's why we call it GoldenHour Collective, because it's either going to be the first light of a beautiful new day, or it's going to be the last light going into a dark time. You know what I mean? And I think it go either way. But with these types of farms, unless you're operating with that goal in mind of only supporting these farmers, it's not going to work. You know what I mean? It's too tempting to say, oh shit, I can get this brand's freaking all-in-ones for $20. Why am I going to buy yours for 30? Well, I'm going to buy yours for 30 because A, it's better. B, you're a small mom and pop farmer and you're the foundation of this industry, and God forbid that culture go away. You know what I mean? And that I truly believe in as well. Is it would be a huge detriment. Forget what you want to say about California and the market and woo. From just a cultural standpoint and a state value standpoint, it would be a horrific disservice if the Emerald Triangle dried up and died and turned into Detroit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when the auto industry left Detroit, it crumbled, right? What would happen to Humboldt County? What would happen to Trinity County if there was no weed? They've already been brutally impacted by the transition from 215, right? With local governments not being very supportive and the state government surely not being supportive of those regions. But what if they went away? It would just be an awful thing for California. You know what I mean? You go to Humboldt, you say Humboldt County and anywhere in the country, and they're going to know what it is, and they're going to know it's got some bomb weed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So so the whole idea of GoldenHour was to lean into this abundance of incredible craft farmers that we have access to, and really highlight those craft farmers exclusively, right? And we have to do it intentionally, and we have to be dedicated to it, which is what we are. You know, you won't find, and it's not a knock against any of the big brands, but you're not going to find any of the big name brands on our shelves. You just won't. You're going to find small gummy manufacturers, you're going to small hash makers, you're going to find small mom and pop farmers. And it's cool because it's a differentiator. Like in weed, just from like a business standpoint, there's 2 licensed dispensaries in weed. We're directly across the street from each other. You know what I mean? We look at each other every day, right? Mm-hmm. And the benefit is they don't have anything that we have, and we don't have anything they have. So it gives, when people come to weed to buy weed, They can go over there and get their gelato carts and their Kiva bars. They come to us and they can get their True Mom and Pop Sour Diesel, and they can get their Lost Creek Blue Dream and a lot of brands they haven't heard of. But it also gives us the opportunity to tell the story of the farmer. You know what I mean? Like, these guys have been growing up on the same ridge since 1981. This is the strain that they're running on a regular basis. This is kind of what they're known for. This is their inputs. You know what I mean? We can tell those kind of stories in a much more direct way and really get people bonded to the plant in a way that was much easier to do in the Prop 215 days. You know what I mean?
I'm actually on your website now. Do you mind if I pull it up and we talk about some of these cool local brands? Because there's definitely stuff on there that I've not seen before.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's growing all the time. We cycle through a lot of stuff because that's the kind of the nature of the beast, right? One farmer's crop will run out and we'll source another one, right?
Right. So I clicked on your guys' all products, but I want to go into your flower first, right?
Yeah.
We can obviously search by brands here. This is only the brands that are obviously listed themselves on.
And you're looking at some beautiful ones, man. Shasta Flower Company, shout out to those guys out of Redding, California, an hour down the hill from us. You know what I mean? Backcountry out of Dunsmuir. You know, all these guys are super local. Safi out of Humboldt County, Ember Valley out of Redding. This is what we source, as close as we can possibly get to the farms. That's who we bring in, you know?
Yeah.
Bob, they're a great distro out of Humboldt County. They're sourcing some great small farms, put it in their bags.
Look at this. Yeah, I've never heard of Canatrust. Those little guys down at Diamond Waves. I'm familiar with Farm Cut. I like Farm Cut. They got those THC
super rad concept. Really, really rad concept for those guys.
Amazing. Yeah, shout out to Humboldt. Shout out to the Emerald Tri. Mendocino. Here was a good one. Mendocino Grasslands. Look at that.
Yeah, those guys are rad, doing a really good job.
Northern Harvest here, Quiet Kings.
Yeah, Northern Harvest, man. If you guys can find some Northern Harvest, that's one of the best indoor I've ever seen. At a Humboldt County, small husband-wife team, man. They're hard to find on it. Socials.
Yeah, that blue raspberry sounds fire.
That blue raspberry is incredible, man. Incredible. So, Redwood Remedies, fantastic. Redwood Remedies has some of the greatest cuts of any farm that we mess with. Like, their Girl Scout cookies is old school Girl Scout cookies. You know what I mean? Like their Sour D is old school. Like, they have this great cuts, man. Good representations of the classic strains that you want to find, you know?
I love that. That's so. And then you mentioned that you guys also even think about curating differently, right, with the edibles. And so Space Gem, right? Shout out the homegirl.
Yeah. So Wendy's edibles is the one area, literally the one category where we have to bend the rule a little bit, because sadly there's just not a lot of small mom and pop farmers. So we fill in a lot with Punch. The Punch guys have been around forever. We used to mess with them in the 215 days, still privately held, real OG ran company. So we bring them in because otherwise we would just not really have a lot of edibles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. I mean, they got a large, like Dr. Norm's is also family owned.
Exactly. So
Emerald Bay Extracts, these guys are great. They're
Emerald Extracts. Emerald Bay Extracts still runs our compassion program, where we give a lot of free meds out to medical patients, you know, people going through chemo, people dealing with some, and they sponsor that entire program for us. So
these Most Wanted gummies look good. I've never seen them before either.
Those guys are fantastic. Hogwash Farms out of Humboldt County, man. Those are one of the very few small edible brands that we can source out of the Emerald Triangle.
Hogwash Farms.
Yeah, we got Space Gems. We got
the Turk Mansion Space Gem collab. Look at that.
Those are incredible, by the way. I take one of those like every night before bed.
You guys got some of the crackers here. There we go. Yeah. Those are on the way. Okay. Now let me go ahead and click back up here on the menu and go back up. You know, some of the other areas of interest for me is obviously the concentrates, right? And so Emerald Triangle, you guys have a lot of great oil coming out of there. Talk to me about the concentrate selection, brother.
Yeah, our concentrate selection is smaller than I would like it to be, just because our refrigerator is not big enough. But I'm working on that. But we got some great concentrates, man. You know,
these
guys. Yeah, Arcata Fire. Shout out to Lisandro and all those guys, man. I actually saved my butt, you know, with the holidays and being in weed. Getting distribution up to us sometimes is challenging, and we have.
Man, those are a deal right now. Those are $30 grams for.
Man.
fucking live resin and diamonds right there.
That's how we try to keep it real fair for everybody up there, man. You know what I mean?
RSO with the ratio 25-1, 27-1.
Good medicine, man. Really good medicine.
That live rosin from Arrow Hill goes crazy.
Those guys are great. I was just up there at their place on Thursday picking up an order from them, and those guys are fantastic, man. So supportive, cranking out great work. And anybody that hasn't had Shasta Hash rosin, you should find it. You know what I mean?
Look at that. That's so white.
It's insane. I honestly don't know if I've ever had.
I've never heard of it.
Terps as good. Small company, man. Boutique little company out of Redding. Great flower, great rosin, great all-in-ones. They really do focus heavy in on their rosin, and it's great. I know that you can get in SAC. I know that you can get it, at a couple different spots here, but I don't know if they've made it down to LA. But check them out on Instagram at Shasta Hash Company, and it's amazing stuff, man. Amazing stuff.
Oh, look, and they got the rosin vapes too.
Yeah, man, their all-in-ones are fantastic. Some of the best flavors I've ever had in an all-in-one. Them and Earl Hill. That's pretty much all that I'm.
Yeah, you guys got a bunch of the Shasta Hash rosin right here. Look at this.
It's great, man.
Going crazy for y'all. Let's go.
It's really some of the best oil I've ever tasted.
Wow. Tell me a little bit about this Sun and Smoke, these groups right here. I've never heard of them either.
Yeah, Sun and Smoke, they source, they're I don't know where their distro is, but they source all out of Mendo and Humboldt. Nice. I'm not incredibly familiar with Sun and Smoke either. The tempos we get from the Punch guys, that's another one that.
Yeah, that's their cool vape brand that they made.
Yeah, so that's like I said, the one area where we break away is with the Punch guys. We mess with them because they really do help fill in some of the voids that we have on the menu, because it's not available. These small mom and pop farmers don't have a huge, SKU count oftentimes on their menu, right? Yeah. So we're sourcing flour, we're sourcing some great hash. The edibles is tough, and and some of the vape hardware is tough as well. But for the most part, 90% of our vapes are locally sourced, and the edibles probably 60-40. So we try, but you just can't have holes in your menu,
Of course. How when it comes, obviously we talked about how difficult it is to get up there to weed from these brands in SoCal or even parts of NorCal. I mean, it's a distance, right? Even if you're up there in the Emerald Triangle, there's are hours and hours of distances oftentimes.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. You could be like, all right, cool, we're getting off the freeway, and still 3 hours away from the farm.
Oh,
right?
For sure. Yeah.
So driving through the back roads and stuff like that. I could easily take us through a lot of, what was it like back in the old days and stuff like that. And I definitely want to get into that with you over time and in other episodes. And so, when you think about your journey through cannabis and you think about these stories, what have been, maybe share a story from, one of those first interactions where you're doing some business in NorCal, or you're grabbing 100 packs or 1,000 packs, or maybe you're blasting disty or turning into making some shatter, or, can you share any of those early legacy days for you when you guys were first starting learning and exploring this product development side of the business?
Oh, man. Honestly, for the most part, I've been a big believer in doing what you're good at. And I fancy myself a retailer. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I've by intent not been vertically integrated. I haven't done. I mean, obviously, we've had our little labs where we're blasting oil here and there, but from like a big piece of the business standpoint, I've really tried.
Retail has been your thing then.
Yeah. Dispensaries are my thing, man. I love the interaction. I love the fact that you're actually face to face with your consumer. Rather than like a business to business model where, you're out here negotiating price on flour. I like to, have my menu up there. The customer knows what they want. They're looking for some education, and we get to have that interaction and build that loyalty that way, in our four walls. So that's really what I've anchored to for the majority of the time. But I've certainly had more than my share of crazy interactions in the stores in the early days, especially when we thought we were going to get our door kicked in any day,
Did you ever, and forgive me for asking if it's inappropriate, did you guys have any raids or things of that nature? Because we spoke to Kenny, one of the CEOs and founders at CQ, Cannabis Quenchers.
Yeah.
They've been around for forever through Venice Cookie Company and
Oh
CQ
yeah.
and
Oh yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah. I know
lemonades and now
Kenny.
the drinks, right?
Yeah.
And so he
Yeah.
was
They are
telling
a
me
big
about how
one.
they started some of the first stuff back, here in LA
Yeah.
and Venice and those areas. And it's like most of the people from California in those generations have all dealt with
Yeah.
guns in their faces and raids to some
Oh yeah.
extent with their local government.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've been fortunate, man. We've been fortunate to dodge a bullet. We've certainly had our fair share of scares. I think it was 2011. We had just moved into the RCP spot over on El Camino after we had to shut down Magnolia, and we were right across the freeway from El Camino Wellness. I don't know how well you know Sacramento retail stores, but El Camino Wellness
There's
used to
a big
kill it.
dispensary there in Sacramento now.
They used to kill it, man. El Camino was part of the Canby thing where, Steve D'Angelo and those guys in the Bay were trying to do like I don't know what you want to call it, almost a semi-franchise model where they were kind of teaching people how to open dispensaries and kind of make it all look and feel similar. So anyway, El Camino was one of those stores, and they've been killing it in Sac for a number of years. And like the month after we opened up right across the freeway from them, they got raided, and the PD staged the raid in our parking lot, and we're telling all our staff, "You're next, you're next, you're next." Ooh, I'll never forget the phone call. I dropped my kids off at school up in Placer County, and I get a call from my partner Mikey, and he's like, "We're getting raided, brother. We're getting raided." And I was like, "Oh shit!" Heart, it sinks in your stomach, freaking out. So I smashed down to Sac. By the time I got down there, they were like, "Oh man, they raided El Camino instead." But they staged the raid in our parking lot, strapping up all their SWAT stuff on, all the freaking cars, armored vehicle, woo, in our parking lot, right in front of our front door. They knew we were there, but that's not what their warrant was for. You know what I
They
mean?
said we could get a 2-for-1.
Yeah, and everybody thought they were, but like diehards, my staff just held it down, and we opened up and stayed open and rocked it, and nobody ever came.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's probably the closest we came to actually getting raided. But thankfully, I've been pretty lucky, A, and B, pretty proactive in trying to mitigate a lot of that stuff. You know what I mean? Like
There's something to be said about whatever the versions and varying understanding or levels of compliance is. It's not to say that it's always very black and white, but it's always like what are people doing really?
Right. Yeah.
And one complaint is all it takes, right?
And Southern California, Northern California are very different, right? Like Southern California, some of the worst raid stories I've ever heard were down in LA. You know what I mean? Like and it's still much more of a legal battleground than NorCal is. But I always had, good mentorship from some of the people that came before us. You know what I mean? Like Berkeley Patients Group. Say what you want. A lot of people are, have mixed feelings about Harborside, but Harborside in the early days, man, they did. Steve and his brother did an incredible job in moving this industry forward. And what I saw working for the people that came before me was, don't be shy, don't lay low, be loud, meet with your elected officials, fly your flag real high, let everybody know where you're at, because if they raid you, that's a public opinion issue, because most people supported medical cannabis, right? Especially in Northern California, right? It was clear cut. Nobody had issue with us being there, except sometimes the PD, except sometimes the elected officials. So if they're going to come in and raid me, I'm going to make it look real bad. I'm going to have compassion programs. I'm going to have education classes going on. I'm going to have all this stuff going on, which is part of our business model anyway, if we're really following the spirit of Prop 215. But I'm going to be loud about it. I'm going to put out press releases about it. I'm going to go talk to the local community paper. I'm going to get to know everybody there. I'm going to have articles written up about all the good work we're doing.
That mentorship is that's so valuable.
That's what I mean. And I was blessed to, come from the Bay and come from Sac, where there was a really good activist culture around, right? So we were running voter initiatives. We were doing all that work. And if you're a PD and you got this trap shop, down the street that's being shady and looking weird, and you can go raid them and, get all their cash out with no sweat, and the community will thank you for it. Or you got this community-based center that's doing nonprofit work, that's opening up food banks, that's, contributing to, causes in the community, that's given to the Little League. You go raid them, it's a bad look. You know what I mean? Yeah. Not to mention, you got to go to court on that, and you got to
very, very different situation.
Right. So that's where I always leaned into, like, we're not going to keep our head down. We're gonna we're going to be as loud as we can. We're going to really promote this plant and this medicine back in the 215 days. And, you know, it worked, thank God. You know what I mean? Because I know a lot of people it didn't work for. So definitely don't shy away from how lucky we were, you know?
Man, so many ups and downs in that through the journey. You know, what year? What was that first year you smoked cannabis? Can we go back to that?
Oh man,
where was that? What were you doing?
First year
I don't usually ask this question, but you're so legacy. I have to ask. What? When did you first start smoking weed?
Probably like 90, 91, 92.
Whew.
You know, I mean,
what was the weed back then for you, brother?
Oh man, it was brown, man. I've always been a Cali guy, right? But you know, when you're young like that, you don't really have access to like the kind bud, right? So you know, there was a lot of sticks and beans in there. Plus, you know, when you're a kid, you're broke. But you know, we used to get, you know, being in the Bay, we had access to like some fantastic bud. I remember like when White Widow came out, and, you know. Later on, all the perps, Granddaddy Perp still kills it. I wish to God I could still find a good Granddaddy Perp cut. I talk to people about it all the time. You know, I tell all these legacy farmers, man, they're like, oh, what should we grow? You know, everything's flooded with runs.
That shit's over on the East Coast now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I need to find some because if we get Green Crack in the store, we get Trainwreck in the store, we get Granddaddy Perp in the store, we get Northern Lights in the store, that stuff flies off the shelf. To this day, doesn't matter what the test results are. People just, ooh. Give me 2 of those. You know what I mean? Because they remember that old smell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember I caught a lot of shit for it. Actually, people, especially online, were all revved up about it. It was probably like 2015. My buddy down in the valley, he was still getting some good old school Bammer, right? So I got like 5 pounds of this Mexican brickweed, right? And it was Prop 215 compliant, right? So we broke it down. I just bought it for the seeds because I've always liked to pop seeds just for fun and see what I could find. But anyway, we put it on the shelf at the sack store, and we just called it Brick. It was on Weed Maps. It was everything. And people lost their fucking mind about it. Oh, they're run by the cartel. Whoa, whoa, all this shit, right? And I was like, no, watch. That shit'll sell. We sold that shit for $10 an eighth. That shit was gone in a week. People loved it. All these old heads, all these hippies were like, I haven't smelled that in 20 years. Oh, they loved it. They were buying it by the zip. It was fucking great.
It's so funny because if you think about it, so many people still talk about it, which is a reflection of the demand. If people grew brickweed and sold it, they buy it.
And it was just like it. I can smell it right now in my nose talking to you, man. That old school shit from like back in the day. It has a certain stink to it, man. It doesn't really even smell like weed nowadays. But like,
I used to get some brickweed in Houston. That shit used to smoke and taste like fucking chicken poo. So
yeah, cool. Exactly. Headaches, just the worst, right? But like, I did it just because, like, you know, we had that.
You gotta get high, better than
back in the day. And of course, it was Prop 215 compliant. You know what I mean? So I wasn't worried about it. But like, man, people loved it, except for online. All these haters were like, "Oh man." Oh, they're run by the cartels. RCP got taken over by the cartels. Oh, I was like, no, we just needed some good genetics, man, from Mexico. So we happened to get some weed with it, you know?
Now, I wanted to take a moment to do 2 things. We're halfway through the episode, so I want to shout out the sponsor again. Big shout out to Sparks.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Sparks, for providing the platform for us to showcase this legacy culture, to highlight California Cannabis. This is the 4th episode of the California Cannabis, so be sure, you guys, to check out Sparks Can. SparksCann.com. If you guys want your weed maps, if you want your Yelp or your Leafly revenue to grow in that area, they're the marketing agency of choice for that. Big shout out to them for stepping in and taking over that project with us to be valuable to retailers across the country. Second thing is I want to highlight your staff. Can you please shout out the staff, the team that you have there? It's a smaller shop, so I imagine it's not too many people.
Yeah.
So can we just shout out the team that is GoldenHour Collective? Because they always talk about the weed sales itself, and the weed doesn't have its own mouth. It takes somebody to talk about it and to offer it to you. And when I've been to weed 2 or 3 times in my sales journey the last few years, it was talking to people that lived there, or they drove hella far to have that job to be there.
Oh, yeah.
They really, really cared about what they did. And so can we talk a little bit about your staff?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we got a great little crew, man. Small, like you said. Tommy, Lauren, Sarah, diehards, man. Especially Lauren. Lauren's been there. He was the security guard at Perfect Union when it was a Perfect Union store, and then they shut it down and then brought it back on. But to save on costs, they just asked Lauren if he wanted to be the everything there. So he had his guard card, so they didn't have to hire another security guard, right? And
Yeah.
he would work open to close every day just by
Wow.
himself. You know what I mean? For, better part of 2 years until we took over.
Wow.
Now he's actually getting some days off.
That is physical grind. That is a hustle.
And granted, it was not a very rocking store during that period of time. There were days where he was probably seeing 5 to 7 people a day, because it was, it was just not getting the love that it probably should have got, right? So he was sitting in there holding it down like a trooper by himself for hours and days. If the power went out because of a snowstorm, Lauren was getting the generator up. If the fires were burning, he was scouting out to see when it was time to abandon shit. Like, if you sat in a slow dispensary before, it's pretty horrific. You know what I mean? It's pretty mind numbing,
Luckily, it's not as bad as what I would imagine, like Ross in the dollar store to be at,
and
what I mean? But it's like, it is so unbearable because you're there and you can't smoke the weed, right? You can't drink it. You can't eat it. We're compliant. There's cameras fucking everywhere.
Yeah, right.
Like, it's definitely a little tough. Even if you go out on break, whatever, you're the only person there. Now the store's shut down for that 30 minutes. So now it's like, you still can't really enjoy it to some extent.
Yeah.
It's a grind. It is rough.
It is a big grind. And then you got to be able to turn it on when a guest does come in, because you want to make the most out of that experience. So you got to be able to pop into, stoking people out mode. And when you've just been sitting there staring at the wall for freaking the last hour, and then all of a sudden someone wanders in, you're like, oh, it's a tough pivot, man. So it's real work, Shout
out to Lauren.
Yeah, shout out to Lauren for sure. Tommy's started Magnolia with me. I've known that dude since I was like 8 years old. He used to beat me up. He's my best friend's older brother. You know what I mean? So he used to lump us both up back in the day. And he, like I said, he was with me when I was doing construction. He helped open Magnolia with me. Like, he's been my diehard forever, man. And he's doing the same thing. He's actually pivoting away from the store to working on a couple partnership agreements with some local growers to kind of like formalize the collective thing. So he's moving into packaging and sourcing. But from a sales standpoint, like, he came in there completely, like, sunk the culture in, which is huge, right? When you're taking over a store, especially on like a turnaround situation, right, where the store is like got a bad rep, the locals, in a little town like that, if you aren't really hitting, it's going to spread and everybody's going to know it's not hitting.
I wouldn't imagine the Perfect Union being super great in that area, considering the fact that, like, how small it is.
That's what I mean.
Is there a McDonald's in Weed, or is that
there's a McDonald's?
Yeah, but that's the shit right off the freeway, though, right? Like, it's not even a part of the community. That's just the freeway area.
Exactly. So down in downtown on Main Street, man, we're trying hard to get it ramped up. Like, I'm working on trying to get a little head shop open to just try to build business, because downtown, since the lumber's gone out, a lot of these mountain towns are hurting. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, Main Street Weed, there's a lot of vacant space there. So, it's really people coming down there to find the stores, the dispensaries, right? Yeah. So it's definitely hurting. So, we're trying to bring in some other farmers to kind of formalize that collective thing a little bit deeper, and to rising tide lifts all ships. So Tommy shifted into that side of it. And then Sarah, we nabbed her from the competition, man, because she wasn't happy over there. And I used to have a rule where I wouldn't hire people from other dispensaries just because I didn't want other culture tainting ours. But Sarah's such a rock star, man. We had to bring her on because she's just a stud. And love solventless. The few people I've ever met know more about solventless from a consumer side than Sarah. You know what I mean? And from like a straight nuts and bolts data standpoint, her sales show it. That girl can sell some rosin to
amazing.
So cool. Right now we got a great team, man. Lean and mean, which is how I like it.
What are the people up in Weed, California? What are they smoking? Do you know? You mentioned the legacy strains, some of the nostalgia strains.
Oh yeah,
ones. Is that true across the board in the rosin space? Is that true in Vegas, for the most part, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we got a lot of older folks that are on fixed income, so weed's real price conscious during the wintertime, because we're only seeing locals right now, right? We got some people coming up to ski Shasta, but there's a lot of great stores in Mount Shasta, right? So it's a trip to come up to Weed. So we're branching out our delivery pretty soon. So we're going to be able to go in 2 peoples because a lot of our people are older, and in the wintertime it's hard to get around. Pain gets worse in the winter. Roads definitely get worse up there in the winter. So we're going to start delivering direct to our customers. But you know, like I said,
deliveries.
Yeah, they like those. They like those. They like the old school strains up there, man. But they also like good quality. A lot of solventless. You know what I mean? A lot of all-in-ones. They love the all-in-ones. They love the Earl Hill. Earl Hill just rolled out some insane. If you haven't tried the Earl Hill all-in-ones, man, their blueberry muffins was like. I'm a blueberry guy. Like, no, there's no better strain to me in the world than blueberry, and their blueberry is.
I love
incredible. You know what I mean?
Blueberry with anything tastes so great.
Exactly. So a lot of that stuff, but that's why I think our concept works, and that's why we're focusing on. We're getting ready to open a store over on the Mendocino coast.
Nice.
But the only places we're looking to expand are where our farms are and where the communities are that appreciate the farms that we carry right now. Eventually, we'll branch out because I think.
Yeah, you're like the winery with like a bunch of wineries around you, right? And you create another retail
and that's what we're doing
for them locally.
That's exactly what we're doing for now when we're young, to kind of just fine-tune systems and fine-tune our branding and fine-tune our supply chain with our farmers and really galvanize this collective model and get people on board. Because honestly, I don't think it works unless there's large-scale buy-in. Like if we can have a book of farmers rocking with GoldenHour and everybody's trusting each other and money's being made, that's how that region is going to pull together. And it just doesn't have to be through GoldenHour. Thankfully, I'm seeing some other retailers take this approach as well. There's a lot of great retailers in Mendocino that are taking locals only kind of an approach, a small mom and pop legacy farmer supporting approach. And I'm seeing more of it even in some of the bigger retailers. They're starting to have sections of the store dedicated to legacy. And the more that can happen, I'm all for it. I want people to copy what we're doing because that's the only way these farms are going to survive,
Gotta bring some respect to those regions, which is why we do it, man. Respect my region, checking in, man. Episode 4, we here right now. We talking all things legacy cannabis, all things weed, California, all things NorCal, Mendocino, Humboldt. What's the third one? I always
don't forget Trinity, man. Everybody forgets Trinity. Trinity's got bomb.
I know it's the one. It's the T1, Trinity County, baby.
Yes. If you haven't checked out Little Hill Cultivators, way outside of Hayfork, you should look them up. Little Hill Cultivators.
Look at you. You're bringing respect to Trinity County, bringing respect and love and attention to these farms, man. That's what we gotta do. Person by person, eighth by eighth, joint by joint. We're gonna pivot over to some fun questions. Not that this hasn't been fun, but we're gonna have a little bit. We're gonna spice things up a little bit and have a good time. Are you ready?
Good.
All right. Now, I know most people out in the middle of nowhere don't give 2 fucks or 2 rats, pisses, or donkeys or cows about celebrities or influencers. But if you did, who would be the GoldenHour collaboration? Who would be the one?
Oh man. I mean, it's hard not to say Willie Nelson, man. I mean,
that's true. Willie's
been in the space, man, but like
Willie needs some love, man. People are going to forget about Willie before it's too.
And he's been putting it down for so long. So from like a GoldenHour standpoint, I mean, Farm Aid. I mean, Willie's been doing this work. He's been supporting small farms since the 80s. You know what I mean? And he's been a big proponent of cannabis for a long, long time. So it's probably got to be Willie, man. If I had one to pick, but if we're talking about like historical figures, it might have to be Bob. You know what I mean? It might have to be Bob Marley.
That's fair.
Can you imagine?
So Willie and Bob getting the nods.
Can you imagine smoking a joint with Bob Marley? How rad that experience would be.
So does that mean that your weed California cannabis themed music festival would be Willie Nelson and Bob Marley?
Oh yeah, a little bit of all of that, man. That fits right in with Mount Shasta. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Siskiyou County loves some reggae and loves some rock, loves some country music. You know.
I love that. Okay, now here's another one. So I know retail's your thing.
Yeah.
But if you did have the green thumb and you was a chef in the kitchen with the breeding and the genetics, what would the strain be that would represent weed California? Like if you were going to grow your San Fernando Valley OG Kush, but it was weed California, what is it?
Oh man, I'm gonna catch hell no matter what I say because this
on.
is
No, man, it's like you get to cook your dish. You know what I mean? This is just
this is a
yours.
divisive issue for a lot
You
of
said
people.
blueberry. It could literally be weed, blueberry. This could be simple.
No. Honestly, I think it would probably be like a green crack or a Jack Herrera. You know, people love that flavor profile up there. They love it. You know,
I just want to show respect to how you said the last name appropriately. It's Jack Herrera, not Herrera.
Right.
That's a
right
key.
On. Yeah. I've been corrected many years ago, so you only got to slap my hand once. You know,
Me as
when it comes to a name like that, it's got to be held in high regard.
So with you guys, and well, going back, you already mentioned your favorite strain, right? That's blueberry, right? And so, do you have any others that round out your top 3, or maybe a starting 5?
Oh yeah, it's gotta be Granddaddy. I'm a purple guy, man. I come from the East Bay, so it's hard not to like.
So hit me with your starting 5 all time.
You're kind of growing up like that, so and I'm old, man. So I'm gonna say some shit that you probably haven't seen for a minute, but I'm gonna definitely be a blueberry number 1. Number 2 is gonna be Granddaddy for sure. Then it starts to get a little bit competitive. I'm gonna go ahead and say Bubba, pre-98 Bubba is my number 3.
Okay.
And then. You know what? I'm going to say something new. The Gotti belts from Backcountry Organics in Dunsmuir, California. If you haven't tried it, you got to find it because it's something.
So different. It's something like it's rainbow belts times something.
Yeah. I couldn't even tell you honestly off the top of my head what it is, but it's bomb.
It's going to be some candy gas.
You should source it because it's fire.
So we got Granddaddy, we got blueberry, we got Gotti belts,
and we got Bubba Kush,
Bubba,
because I love a nice old Bubba Kush.
What's the last one? It's tough.
It is tough because I'm specifically thinking about certain things. You know, honestly, it's probably gonna, and it's kind of boring, but it's probably gonna be a grape ape. You know,
no, that's great.
I love perps, man. It's the only thing that come to mind. I want to say something more exciting, but an Urkel, a grape ape, an old school purple Kush, all that stuff is just what I grew up on. When I really started discovering cannabis and really started understanding like the difference between weeds, like purples was it. You know what I mean? The old school Granddaddy out of Oakland, you know, the purple Kush, you know, all those great cuts that they used to sell over at the Blue Sky in Oakland. Like, man, they were just, it's tough to get away from that when it's ingrained in you like it is with me, you know?
I hear that. For me, I go back to those key places where those medical dispensaries. I'm from Washington. My weed experience is all medical Seattle, and then budtending rec in Seattle, and then marketing and working with retail and making content, showcasing culture across the country and world now, right? And hearing, you know, we hear about the Moroccan hash. Imagine there's a whole million different variations that they've done there. Just like how we do flower and strains, they do that with hash. Then there's rosin in all these directions. And now there's vapes and all these different types of oils. And you can be the super fan of just cured resin and go a million direction, or the super fan of live for a couple years. Right? So it's just so interesting to hear this and these different perspectives and strains. You know, for me, the initial favorite strain that I ever had, Dutch Treat. So enamored by that dense sand-like pine sour candy. That was my first introduction to candy. Smoking Swisher Sweet blunts of Dutch Treat. I definitely remember the green crack in college. My business partner Mitch sold me my first ounce in college. He said that there was a high possibility that was some Blue Dream or green crack because that's what he was buying a lot of. And he was getting it from Oregon, from Portland. So we were smoking Oregon weed before I even knew it. And then I go, you know, I think about my early days in cannabis and recreational cannabis, again, staying in Washington. And this is regional palettes, right? We're talking regional.
Oh, for sure.
2012, 13, 14, cookies. Cookies, Girl Scout cookies, herb cuts, Thin Mints, all those different greatness, the early gassy cookies.
Those old school cookies, man, were so good.
So and then good. Washington didn't get heavy into the Kusher, so I didn't. Obviously, there was Bubba's there, but it wasn't heavy in the stuff. In Washington, we sold a lot of Cinex. I sold a lot of Northern Lights. When I think about Alaskan Thunderfuck, I think about Trainwreck, I think about the Northern Lights, I think about Matanuska Thunderfuck, I think about Montana Silvertip, I think about Oregon Silvertip. Oregon Silver Haze, Lemon Haze, Super Silver Haze, Amnesia Haze. I think
Yes.
about Chem. I think about OG Cookies. Some of
Oh
those
yeah.
things. The
Yeah.
I think about DJ Short's Blueberry is honestly going to be in my probably my top 10, maybe not my top
Yeah.
5 now. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
obviously we got into the cake. The cake
Yeah.
wave can never be forgotten.
No, it can't. It can't. And actually, you reminded me, man. I don't know what I was thinking about. If I got to round out
Oh,
my,
do we got to switch? Do you got a
I got to
5 or
switch,
switch?
man. You
Oh
put me on the
no!
spot, man. You put me on the spot.
Oh
I just have to
no!
think through all the weed, but it's got my top 5 kosher kush from DNA Genetics has to be.
Oh, he's bringing out a heavy hitter with that.
Has
one.
to be
so
on it.
lemony,
The fact that
so
I didn't,
piney.
the fact that I didn't think about that off the top, given that that's literally all I grew this season, it's probably because I've been trimming it nonstop, so blocked it out of my mind. But yeah, kosher kush from DNA Genetics. Those guys down there are fucking rad. Like, still to this day, after 20-something years, still putting out like game-changing genetics on a regular basis. All their honey banana crosses they just rolled out this summer are crazy. Yeah, kosher kush. I remember when that first popped, like, was it 2013, 14-ish? I was like, and I've always been an OG fan, but like that's a different kind of OG. That's kosher kush. Mm-hmm. Kosher kush.
Also, I'm gonna throw the Marathon OG on my list because Nipsey.
Oh yeah, same.
Oaksterdam. It's the Oaksterdam cut. Marathon OG for me. It's the best celebrity weed of all time. No 100%. Matter how many cookies cuts or runs cuts get created 100%. Or Skittles cuts, the Marathon OG, hands down.
You're 1,000% right.
Culture, heart.
Yeah.
What it represents, what it stands for, the smoke, the genetics. It's an OG. And then I'll give another one. Skywalker OG.
Yes. Yeah.
There's the Skywalker is that dark, musky funk. It's like the Raiders back in the day.
Yes. With OGs, man, like with real old OGs, you can almost have a top 5 just in OGs. You know what I mean?
Okay, so I got 4 questions for the pop shot rapid fire with you, and then we're gonna end it out. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I think so.
For you personally, coffee, tea, or an infused drink?
Coffee. I'm a coffee freak, man.
You got a brand?
I do a lot of like local spots here in Sac just because I was here for so long. So
shout out which coffee. If I pull up to you, which cafe are we going to?
We're going to Old School. We're going to Old Soul Coffee in Oak Park. That's where we're going. Go. At 40 acres. Oak Park, Sacramento is my spot.
Edibles, flower, concentrates, beverages. Which one?
Concentrates, rosin in particular.
Which brand?
One. Someone's gonna get mad at me, man. But honestly, if I had to grab one, it's gonna be the Shasta out of Reading.
Let's go, Shasta getting the love. Okay. Come on. Okay, this one might be what's one answer, one word. What's one thing about running a dispensary that people would never guess?
One thing? Probably the hours, man. Probably the hours. People still to this day seem to think it's like a dream job, and it is, man. I'm blessed beyond. I couldn't imagine doing this for a living. But like, we work, boy. Like, my wife and I were at the shop on Friday night until 2 a.m. We were there the next day because we were changing over our POS system, doing inventory till freaking midnight. Like, I worked Thursday, I worked 15 hours. Friday,
who'd you switch to?
You know what I mean? What's that?
Who'd you guys switch to?
We switched over to Meadow.
Nice.
I'm not gonna say who we switched from because I don't want to bash anybody.
No, we get it. We moving forward. We don't look back.
Meadow's great, man. Meadow does a great job.
Amazing. Big shout out to Meadow and congrats. That's so much fun. And they do a strong job of helping out the smaller retailers in that area as well.
They really do.
Okay, last question for this fun rapid fire segment. If you could teleport to any cannabis friendly destination right now, where would it be? What would you bring?
I would go to Barcelona.
Ooh.
And I would bring a pocket full of California rosin from several different makers, and I would hang out with all my Catalonian friends, and we would smoke rosin all night at these clubs because social clubs in Barcelona hit very different. If you haven't been, you should go.
I have been. Spanibus 2022.
Yes, sir.
Life changing.
I was there. I wish I would have known, man.
Oh man, going. That's so crazy. Yeah, what a blessing. It's my goal to get there this year. To anybody watching this, we're looking for sponsorship, so tap in. You know what I'm saying? Let's go. I'm trying to be there. Let's go.
Me too. I'm looking for
sponsorship. So Golden Hour. What's next for Golden Hour, and where can people visit you?
You can visit us at goldenhourcollective.org or goldenhour_weed on Instagram. or you can just come to the shop at 241 Main Street in Weed, California. If you're coming up and down the 5, if you're going from Oregon, if you're going to Oregon or Washington, stop by and say hi. What's next? We're working on getting a couple more stores open, man. We're scouting out in Trinity County right now. Real estate's a little tough. We're getting ready to open. We're just waiting for the DCC to approve our Mendocino application. That's right on built out and ready to turn on. Right there on the coast. That's going to be a micro business for us so that we can source a little closer to the farm, package, and then send out, because a big part of what we're trying to next phase is to do distribution on branded goods, because we can only open so many little stores so fast, and we're opening in the Emerald Triangle, we're opening in NorCal. The goal of GoldenHour as a mission is to bring these farms into the supply chain in a more meaningful way. I have some background and expertise in that, so I think I need to put that into use and get these brands down closer to where you're at, down into San Diego, into places where they don't have access to these brands anymore like they did in the medical days. So that's the next phase of GoldenHour.
Man, that is incredible. Now, I didn't say this at the beginning, David, but the title of today's episode was Small Town, Big Dreams, and Tons of Cannabis. Because your experience with retail, you have sold tons of cannabis.
I sold a lot of weed.
You guys operate now in a very small town. You guys have very big dreams of helping keep the Emerald Triangle, Trinity County, Humboldt, Mendocino, not just alive, but to flourish and grow and succeed and continue being the foundational culture that and pillar that it has been for cannabis in a whole new way, and adapt further into the future as the industry continues to grow and change. Now, I really appreciate you being here on today's episode with us, episode 4, California Cannabis Podcast, everybody. Make sure you guys go visit their website, pull up on them, type in Weed California if you happen to be in Northern California, all the way up there. Support, show love, go in there and spend $10, go in there and spend $50, go in there and buy all your weed for the month. Do all the things. Max them out. I'm here to tell you, max out your limits. You know what I'm saying? Support a small business. Support the expansion. Support the mission, the dreams. As I said, small town, big dreams.
Appreciate you, Joey, very, very much, man.
Get it rocking, man. You guys, again, this episode is brought to you guys by Sparks Can. Visit sparkscan.com for more information on Weed Maps, Yelp, and Leafly in terms of growing your revenue. If you're another retailer watching this, be sure to tap in. Thank you again, David, for being here with us. Big shout out to GoldenHour Collective and the entire team there, and all of your wonderful legacy partners and the craft operators that you work with. And I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, man.
I learned more about you. Were already dope and doing the things, and then this is really great. So I appreciate your mission,
man. Thank you.
Big shout out to Sergio here for popping in, showing love here on LinkedIn. I'm going to show one little thing here while we can. Come on, man. Hey, again, our best energy, all the well wishes we can, our condolences to the people in Southern California. We're here dealing with it right now, me and Respect My Region as well. So I hope everything goes well for us. But again, for all those other people, be sure to find a way to support. If you're down here, volunteer if you can. If you're able to donate money, donate it if you can. If you can bring food, water, drinks, anything you can. There are at least 10,000 firefighters active trying to protect people down here. So be sure to get involved. I appreciate all of you guys for watching. Thank you, and have a great rest of y'all day. We'll see you next time. Love y'all. Peace.